Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of Humanity show at prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. My name is Guy Dawson, and I am conducting a series of interviews under the show, The Voices of Humanity, with victims of police misconduct, police brutality, and we've been interviewing a host of people over the last few months, and we have another person who wants to tell his story today. His name is Terry Rogaczewski, and he has a really interesting story, not in a good way, by the way, but interesting nonetheless, about an interaction that he had with the police in 2012. And Terry, welcome to the Voices of Humanity show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it a lot. It's a great way to get the
story.
Terry,
will you tell us the story of the interaction that you had with the Metro Police Department in 2012?
Yeah, actually, I moved here with my partner at the time in 2012. And I had moved here thinking that I was going to be working at Lake Mead National Park, because at that time I was working for the National Park Service, and they had budget cuts. And of course, my number was up, and so I got my job loss. So I had been applying for jobs, and I had just got a job at Nellis Air Force Base to work in the security forces section. And basically, we went out to one of the pools on on the strip, and kind of had a little celebration, because finally I was going to be working again. And everybody wanted to go out to the clubs that night to keep on the celebration. But I had to get up early because my day was going to start at 4:30 in the morning. So I ended up going home. And I was still kind of, amped up, not only because I was going to be working the next day. And the next day was going to be a lot of training. So it's going to be a lot of play and a lot of, learning the job, playing with the new toys, things like that. So I was pretty amped up, and I just couldn't fall asleep. So at the time I had a bug bite. Vegas is pretty hardcore with bugs. And so I was taking Benadryl at the time, and I had taken a Benadryl thinking that would help me, kind of relax and zonk out. And it was probably, I'd say maybe half hour, 45 minutes. And typically Benadryl hits me pretty quick, and it just didn't do anything for me. So I had went to my prescription Ambien, and I had been on Ambien for about a year and a half or so for a car accident that I was in, and I had injured my back. And I didn't take it regularly. I took it, probably maybe, I'd say half a dozen times a month, which we found out is actually the worst thing you can possibly do for Ambien, is to take it, not on a regular basis. And so it hit me, and I fell asleep. And I was actually watching Duck Dynasty at the time, and that was the stupidest show I've ever seen in my life. But I still want to know what the ending was like. I still cannot find it on YouTube or anything, but I want to know the ending of the show. But anyway, I fell asleep, and the next thing I know, I woke up and I was in the hospital, and it was 3 days later. And the interactions that were portrayed by Metro to me while I was in the hospital, for me was just, I thought I was going to get punked. I thought Ashton Kutcher was going to walk out of the curtain and tell me, here's the joke of your life. And for what the story that they had told me was that I was downstairs of my apartment complex, and I was stopping vehicles from entering the complex. And one of the vehicles that entered the complex, I guess I had pulled my weapon out, and he saw it. He backed up into a wall, got out, ran across the street, and I fired my weapon at 136 feet into the grill of his car, all 9 rounds. And there were two undercover. I don't want to say undercover because they weren't undercover. They were low profile. They're not wearing uniforms, but they were on duty in a unmarked police car, and they were at that time, which was a Dottie's. Now it's a what was it, a Jonies or something like that, I think, Nisa.
Dottie's.
At the time, it was a Dottie's, but yeah, but now it's something different. They heard the shots, and without calling for backup, they actually drove around to, which was probably, I don't know, I'd say a couple thousand yards. It wasn't very far away. I mean, I can throw a rock at the complex next door. And they drove around and confronted me in front of the car that I had just shot. And when they pulled up, according to their story, was that I was stumbling around and it appeared that I was intoxicated. And so they thought that I was the driver of that vehicle and that I was just in an accident. So their and I still don't understand their thought process on it, because they said they responded to shots fired. So when they came over and saw the accident, they came out of the vehicle to ask if I was okay. And when I guess had turned around, the weapon was still in my hand, although it was unloaded, with a slide lock back. And the officer that contacted me, Officer Denton, which was the passenger side officer, became spooked, and he retreated backwards and tripped over himself. And I'll go into that part second, because first I want to say that he actually says that I fired at him first 5 to 7 times, and that's why they had to return fire. So, but the story was that he actually tripped over himself, and when he landed on the ground, the gun went off and shot a round up in the tree. And so his partner, who heard the shot, turned and saw his partner on the ground, assumed that I'm the one who shot him, and then he started firing the rounds. And then between the two of them, 21 rounds later, they fired at me, striking me 3 times. And I ended up in the hospital for 7 days, on a ventilator for 3 days, and in the ICU, chained to my bed.
And that's how you woke up. That's
how I woke up. Yeah, it was a very if you've never woken up out of anesthesia before, it's like waking up out of a sleep, a deep sleep. And I woke up to I remember them saying blow out, blow out, blow out, because they were pulling the tube out of my throat. And I was kind of like looking around, and everything was at a haze. I did see doctors and nurses. And then I remember the chain on my foot. I was chained to the bed, and I had the biggest pain. I mean, the worst pain of my life in my left arm. And I couldn't move it. And I was able to move my right arm a lot and do the things that they wanted me to do, but the left arm was just not even, there was no use of it at all. And then I looked over to my right and saw the uniformed Metro. He was a corrections officer, so he was one of the guys that worked in the jail, who was there to watch me, because at that time I was under arrest. And that's how. So you're under.
Yeah, so you're under arrest again. You have you've been out for a few days. You have absolutely no idea why you are where you are. And then how did they explain to you what had happened?
It was funny because, excuse me, I had a lot of doctors and nurses come in and making snide comments to me for about a day or so about, you don't remember anything, you know what you did. And they wouldn't let me watch the news. In fact, the TV was turned towards the officer so he can watch TV. So they wouldn't let me watch any of the news. So I really didn't know anything what was going on. And the doctors and nurses kept making snide comments about me being a cop killer and shooting at innocent people and shooting up neighborhoods. And I was just like, what the? And then it was the morning, I think it was Monday or Tuesday or something like that, where two detectives came in and they told me the story of what happened, or what they thought the story was. And they were trying to get answers out of me, like, why did you do what you did? And I had no recollection whatsoever that I even did any of those things. And not only did I not have recollection, but the things they were telling me I did, I don't think I would ever have thought in my lifetime that I would ever have done those things, because I spent my whole entire life doing the complete opposite, saving people's lives and doing things that made others, enjoy their day better and live better instead. And so the things that they were telling me, I was in complete shock, to even fire my weapon at anybody. Everybody who knows me, from law enforcement officers to paramedics to my friends and family, know that my life would have had to be in jeopardy for me to fire my weapon, or somebody else's life would have to have been in jeopardy. So their original story was that I had fired at them a bunch of times, and that was what the detectives were saying. And it took me about a year until I went to my preliminary trial. And this is when we found out that I never fired my weapon at the officers, because the evidence was actually finally given to us. The Metro CSI team actually canvassed the area, found no shell casings anywhere near where the officers that I encountered were. And my shell casings were up the parking lot of the apartment complex, 13 parking spaces actually, which came out to 136 feet. And so while we had the detective on the stand, we got him to admit that I never fired at the officers, and that the story that they had told was inaccurate. They didn't call it a lie or anything else. They just said that the story that they told was not matching the evidence that was presented.
And so is this before you, because I know you were in custody. I was reading about your case, and you were apparently in custody in county jail for 5 years.
Correct. Yes.
So what was happening? You were fighting your case for 5 years in county jail. Could you explain that?
If anybody knows me, knows that I'm pretty stubborn, and knows that, I guess I want to say that I knew the side of law enforcement. I knew the side of EMS. I knew the side of, ballistics and things like that. So I started questioning things. And the more I questioned, the more I spoke to my attorney on the phone or met with my attorney, the more the prosecution postponed my case. And so I wasn't going to plead out to anything that they were. I think I want to say it was 17 Class B violent felonies that they had charged me with: 3 attempted murders, 3 assault with deadly weapons, the 9 discharging of firearms, because they charged me for each round that I fired, battery on the police officers. Yeah, there were 17 felonies, and I can't remember all of them off the top of my head right now. And they wanted me to plea out, and that would have been my life. It would have added up to a life sentence. And in this state and a couple of other states, you have what they call general intent crimes and specific intent crimes. And a specific intent crime is something that you have to prove every element of the crime. So like attempted murder or murder, you have to prove that person had every element of the crime to commit it. And with me being on Ambien, there's no way you can prove that I had intent to commit those crimes. But the discharging of a firearm, on the other hand, is a general intent crime. So I would have been found guilty of that no matter what. because it just all he had to do is prove that I shot the gun. My fingerprints were on the gun. It was my gun. And so it would have been, you know, if I would have been convicted and I went to trial, it would have been a 1 to 6 for every round that I fired. So 9 times, what was it? 56, 9 to 56. And so I fought and fought and fought. And, you know, there was something that I had to find that could break the case, you know? And we ended up finding out about David Denton's DUI arrest that happened prior to my incident. And so my attorney at the time started questioning things, you know, were they intoxicated? You know, the fact that the officer tripped over himself, and why was his finger on the trigger in the first place to pull the trigger when he fell to make the gun go off? A lot of the other things when you in law enforcement that you have to do when you shoot is know what is your backdrop and what's, you know, who's back there, you know, who are you shooting at? There's a busy street that we were on, very busy street. You know, we were in a grocery store complex right next door. So I started questioning things, and I just kept going and kept going. And honestly, that 5 years, it went by pretty quick in my mind. I didn't really think that I was in there for 5 years. And when I play it back in my mind now, I mean, I lost 5 years of my life with another 7 months in prison. But at the time, I was fighting for my life, you know, and I knew because I would never have done the things that, you know, they said that I did. And so what broke the case was David Denton got a second DUI arrest. And that's basically what broke the case, because now our questioning with them was he drunk when they shot me? Well, now he's got his 2 DUI arrests on the job, you know, and when I say on the job, he was in a police car. You know, the first one, he actually crashed his police car on Green Valley Ranch Road, and you can actually Google it and find it. The second one, he got stopped coming out of the headquarters building over there off of I think it's a Rancho or something like that, the main headquarters, and he got stopped by his own department and he got arrested. And it was on the Channel 5 News, and I saw it, and I called my mom right away, and I said David Denton got arrested for a second DUI. And of course, they monitored everybody's phone calls, and mine was very, very monitored by the prosecution. They knew that I knew it. And within 2 days, I had 7 plea deals being offered to me because they knew that they couldn't take it to trial with the fact that they had an officer who just got fired for a second DUI. And so that would have just made the jury go, you know, are these officers out there drinking, you know, and doing their job? Which now we know, you know, from other instances that they are. They do, you know, drink and drive and do other things, other types of illicit drugs. And that's not only that, but, you know, it's the, you know, some of these guys are amped up on, you know, the chew and all the you know, the Red Bulls and these drinks that are made to give you this energy, but it actually does things bad for you when you need to go into defensive mode, and because it doesn't allow you to go that way. So a lot of these shootings, you know, and I know they've done studies on it, that when you go into a stressful situation, having 6 or 7 Red Bulls isn't going to allow you to, you know, anticipate what you need to, and do the actual, I don't know how you would say it, that do the actual thing that you should be doing and do it right because of the chemicals that are in those Red Bulls.
So you had already basically done 5 years in county jail. And then this officer gets arrested for his second DUI while on the job. And then you said the prosecutors came to you and they offered you deals. So tell me about the types of deals that they offered you.
The final deal that I actually got was called a fictional plea. And the reason they call it a fictional plea is because it was charges that I was never actually charged with in the first place. And so what they had to do was, because of the fact that they had to give me a charge that would go with the time that I had already served. So it's really hard to come up with charges that I did with the time that I already served. So they basically, pretty much made up something. And they gave me a discharge of a firearm inside of a structure with no violence and no victim was the actual charge that I actually ended up with, instead of shooting at an occupied vehicle and shooting at the police officers and shooting at the other individuals and stuff. So to come from that, and I felt that that was appropriate because I took responsibility for my actions. Even though I don't feel that I was 100% responsible for my actions because of the Ambien, I did in fact shoot my weapon that night, and I can't not just say I'm going to walk away from this. You know what I mean? I did what I did, so I felt that taking that responsibility was in my best interest.
You don't ever remember discharging your gun at all that night?
I don't remember a thing from going to sleep that night until I woke up the next, 3 days later. I remember watching the Duck Dynasty, and I was probably a good 10 minutes from the ending because I really wanted to see the ending, and I didn't make it. And then, which is kind of funny, is I went to bed I didn't go to bed. I was actually on the couch because we didn't have a TV in the room. So I had athletic shorts that I was wearing, no shirt. And when I got up in what they call the Ambien zombie effect, I got fully dressed. I actually loaded my duty weapon, put shoes on and a jacket, and actually went downstairs. And so I was doing some very complex things while under the influence of the Ambien, and I don't remember any of it. And I actually unlocked my box that the gun was in. So I had to find my keys and actually unlock the box that the gun was in. So I was doing some very complex things. But if you Google some of the things that people have done, I mean, it's incredible. Some of the things that, if you can drive a car down the street, that's complex in itself without even being under Ambien. So there's been some pretty horrific things that have happened. Just recently we had a mass shooting. We found out the one of the shooters was actually taking Ambien and using it to they did the kind of there's a school in Texas that was using it to for date rape drug because the person, it's an amnesic, it's a hypnotic amnesic, so it makes you forget. But what they also do is the fraternities, what they'll do is they'll take 6 or 7 pills and try to fight the effects of the Ambien. And so they party harder and do the things, and the first person who falls asleep is the person who gets the brunt of the joke, I guess. But it's amazing what people can do, or what they have done on Ambien. I mean, if you read some of this stuff, it's pretty crazy that it hasn't been pulled off the market already. And the funny thing is that unless you're seen by somebody doing it, you don't know what's going on. So how many people have had this happen to them that have been by themselves? You know what I'm saying? So we know for a fact that, somebody like in the middle of the night got hungry. So they get up in the middle of the night, go put a pizza in the oven, but forget to take it out of the box. So the kitchen burns down. So we find out that, that kind of stuff happens. But, if and I've heard other stories of things like that, but unless you're seen by somebody or something like that happens, we really don't have any idea of how many incidences really happen on these sedative hypnotics that are out. I mean, it's kind of scary. It really is scary.
And so you were offered a deal, you took the deal, and you did 7 months in prison.
Yes, I was supposed to. The deal that I got was that I had time served. I had actually 1 year more than my time was served. So I was supposed to go up to. The way it works is if you are convicted of a felony, you have to go to prison to get a prison number. So you go up to the fish tank, and I was supposed to be immediately released upon finding housing. I had housing set aside, but because of the functionality of our state's parole and probation, it took them 7 months to check out my housing. So I sat in prison for 7 months waiting to get out.
And so you did the 7 months, even though you weren't supposed to do any time up there. Then what?
Then I went on parole. And I'm still on parole. I'm actually on parole until November. So the actual, I want to say it was a 4-16, I think it was the actual conviction time. So my parole is up in November of this year. So that would be my end date. And I'll be free to roam and free to do what I need to do until, hopefully, crossing my fingers. I cross my fingers, but I'm holding the phone. I can get a pardon from the state, and that's the biggest thing that I'm working on right now with help from several very, very incredible people that have bent over backwards for me. One of them being Senator Parks, my lawyer Lisa Rasmussen, and a couple of others, Nisa. I mean, just the amazing things that she's done. That's my biggest goal right now, is to get a pardon and get this overturned so that I can go back to my life again. Because right now I am not able to do anything that even remotely close to what I was able to do before, and that was save lives, and do what I think my job on earth was put here for, was to save other people and help other people and animals.
You were in custody at county jail for 5 years. Then you were in prison for 7 months. You got out. You're still on parole. What was your life, or what has your life been like after all of this?
It took me about 3 months or so to get acclimated once I got out. And when I say acclimated, just the colors, because inside of jail, inside of prison, it's one color, it's white. And then the doors are maybe gray, but that'd be the only color. So to get used to colors again was a big deal for me. Getting used to driving again, I got motion sickness, for the first couple of months. Just being around other people, being in crowds, having people around you, because when you're in jail and prison, you go into a protective mode. You have to, I don't want to say you have to be ready to fight at all times. Because anything could break out and you could be the one person that they pick, that they want to go after. So you have to be in that protective mode at all times. You're always watching your back, always watching what's going on, always watching and you can pick out the tension in the room. And I became very good at, picking up, there's a lot of tension going on. I'm going to go over to my bunk and hide, because something's going to happen, and you just know it. So it took me a while to do that. The next thing that was really hard was eating food again, eating real food. I was always, had stomach issues, because jail food, for the most part, is pig slop. I mean, it's really what it is. It's mostly soy based, which I think Nisa, I think you like soy, don't you? But it's just disgusting. It's just a horrible, horrible nutritional value that they give you. And then you have to check in once a month with your parole officer, and then you're monitored by parole and probation. And so they can come to your house anytime they want. They can stop you at any time they want. They can do pretty much whatever they feel they justified, including the local police. You have to register where you live with the local police department, and then they can also come to your house anytime they want. So, like, say my crime was, if I had something other than the discharging firearm, let's say like I had a burglary charge, and a burglary went on down the street. Well, now they know that I'm registered and I had a burglary charge. They can come to my house and question whether or not I was involved in the burglary. So that's why one of the reasons why you register. So for the first, I'd say 6 months, I was watched pretty closely by PNP, parole and probation. But after that, they started learning who I was as a person, learning the case itself, and learning that it was BS, and I started getting trusted a lot more. I didn't have to worry about checking in as much. We're about to get invaded by the cats. They knew, being a paramedic, doing the job, I was teaching at school. I was doing some movie work, and that was the other thing, getting a job as a felon. It took me 3 years to find an actual full-time job in my field. 3 years. I had little side gigs here and there that would just help me with money. But it really took the stars to align right to get me this job. And then kind of have it all shut down with COVID really sucks. But that's really hard to do. Getting a job in your field. It sucks. Getting a place to live. I'm not allowed to just freely move around anytime I want to. I have to get permission from PNP if I want to move. I even have to get permission if I want to apply for a job, because they could certain cases could not allow you to work in certain areas. Say if you were a child molester, you can't work near a school, things like that. So I have to make sure that PNP is knowledgeable of the jobs that I'm applying for. Now I have a pretty cool PO. The last couple actually have been really cool. They know they, do what you need to do. If you want to go work a movie, go do this, go do that. They've been really cool the last one. I'm actually having more issues with Metro than I'm having with PNP. And when I say issues, the unit that the two officers belonged to was called the PSU, or the Problem Solving Unit. It was a little side division or unit put together, kind of like the old LAPD crash back in the old 80s. And they're a unit of non-uniformed officers, and basically they go to the more serious crimes that are occurring, gang issues, shootings, things like that. They kind of just go on their own. They're not dispatched. They don't have to tell the dispatch where they are or anything like that. They just kind of roam the city and just do what they want. I have been getting harassed pretty continuously. In fact, the latest one was about, I'd say 3 weeks now, where the issue that came about were that two officers were actually inside my complex, my apartment complex where I live now. And I didn't even pay any attention because I thought I was safe in my complex. And as I was walking down the walkway to get to my building, they said, "Hey, you," or it was, "Hey, what's up?" or something to that effect. And I turned around and I had guns pointed at me. And the comment was, "If you touch your camera, we'll shoot." Because I've been carrying a body camera around with me. And I've been carrying it around for a little over a year now because of the harassment. My feeling, as well as my lawyer's feeling, is that if this does go in front of the pardon board, you're going to have people ask questions. And, for the most part, this was swept under the rug. I took the felony. I went to prison. The two officers were awarded Medal of Valors for their tremendous work that night on November 3rd, 2012. And it was swept under the rug. It was made to look like Metro did a phenomenal job. And so with this going to go in front of 7 judges and the governor, there's going to be questions asked, and I have all my evidence. I have the paperwork that shows that I didn't do the things that they're saying that I did. I have all these paperwork, that they're going to have to answer to. And so when the judge asks, why did this happen or why didn't this happen, I can say, well, here's the evidence. Here's my paperwork that shows that it did or didn't happen. And I think they're nervous. I think they're scared. And so the harassment that I've been getting has been watch my back, stop my process of the pardon. Just basically it's just, more and more watch your back. And so it was my very first body camera that I got. It was a little type body camera that I had. And the first interaction I had, the officer actually took it from me, erased the footage, and after he was done with the harassment, he gave me back my camera. And so I felt, what use is it to have a body camera that you can't, keep the footage if, what use is it? So like with police department, their stuff's backed up to a hardware, some sort of drive unit so that, their stuff disappears a lot, but anyway, what I'm saying. So I needed to find a camera that would save my information without them being allowed to erase it. And I did a lot of research and I found a law enforcement actual camera that does save the information to the camera, but it actually downloads it to my phone and then downloads to the cloud. So they can actually take my camera, take it all they want, but it's on my phone. They can take my phone all they want, but it's on the cloud and they can't get to my cloud. So, in fact, Forestry Directory Project just got a grant to do the same thing with cameras. And we've distributed the cameras to certain people and that are having some issues. And it's the same system that I have. And the camera works great and it does what it does. And that's one of the reasons why I had guns pointed at me this time, because they knew that if I pushed the button, there was no way that they could have erased the footage. And they know. So now I have to walk around now with the camera on at all times instead of being able to push the button when the camera, to activate the camera when an event happens. So that's been going on since I've been out. But for the most part, it's just been, it's living in Vegas. It's now we're in the middle of Corona, so that's a whole other issue. But, finding a job, watching my back from these officers, and, just trying to lay low. It's a whole different world. It's not like what I used to, where I used to be out, the sirens go by every day, and it bums me out because I can't do that anymore, or at least right now until I get the pardon. But I get job offers all the time because of the teaching that I do at a school. I teach at the EMS training center, and I teach a lot of the supervisors and the chiefs and stuff, and they're like, "Why don't you come work for me? Why don't you come work for me?" And I don't, or try not to tell them my side of the story because I don't want it to get out. But there is a lot of people. This is a small community, and a lot of people know about my story. So when the Southern Nevada Health District found out about it, they took my license away from me. So now it limits my job even more. So now I'm fighting to get that back through help from Commissioner Tip Seeger-Bloom. So he and Senator Parks are helping me try to get my license back so that I can actually go and work at other jobs. So it's just a fight just to stay living. You know what I mean? Just to be able to make money and feel like society. That's the biggest thing, because they don't want you to be a productive member of society. They don't want you to. It's made to. The system is made to break you. It's made to go against you, and it's made to make you feel like you are nothing. And I think they're very upset that I've accomplished what I've accomplished in the time that I've been out. I think that they are upset that I haven't been returned back to prison. You know, I broke the stereotype. So I'm hoping that the pardon board sees it and I can go on with my life.
Having been a part of law enforcement, and I want to bring you in just a second, Nisa, but I have one question I want to ask Terry really quickly. Having been a part of law enforcement prior to all of this, what is your perspective now that you've had to experience something such as what you've gone through since 2012?
It's funny because, you know, I go through the same training that every law enforcement officer goes through. Everybody goes through the same type of law enforcement academy, except we go through an added land management portion to our law enforcement, general law enforcement academy. But in my role as a park ranger with the National Park Service, we're not a city agency where we are hands are on our guns at all times and we're in the ready and we're ready to take down the bad guys at all times, even though we have to have that mentality because, I mean, let's face it, we've found some of the top 10 most wanted FBI's guys in the national parks hiding. So we have rapes, murders, you know, crimes like that happen in national parks all the time. So we just have a different mindset. We're more of a, this is your park, come visit. And then if you have to transition into the law enforcement role, you transition into that role, but you transition into what's appropriate. We're not trained to go straight for our gun and ask questions later. You know, we can escalate our force. We're trained to escalate and de-escalate. And, you know, we've been wearing body cameras for a while. You know, we've had tasers for a lot longer than most departments. So I think that my mindset has always been different from the average city cop. And now that I see what I've seen, I guess I can say that I wish I would have seen it before I started in law enforcement, because it would have changed my mindset even more. But I still love being a park ranger. I really, really, truly love being a park ranger, because it's not just being law enforcement. You are a paramedic, you're a firefighter, you're an interp ranger. You go educate about the trees. You go deal with animal issues constantly. You do search and rescue. You do swift water rescue in the rivers. I mean, there's so many different things your hat wears in the Park Service that it is truly one of the best jobs that I've ever had. And I honestly would still, to this day, go back to it, because it's not just a law enforcement job. You know, more of anything is interpretation. We did a lot of education. Even if my traffic stops, I even have a letter from a lady that wrote me to thank her for giving her a ticket because it saved her life later down the road, because she ran into a large herd of elk, and because she was going slower, it saved her life. And that's what our jobs were education. And so I don't think that traditionally our type of law enforcement is the same as, say, a city cop like Metro or Henderson or anything like that. So it's different. I definitely have a different perspective, but it's always been that way since even before I became, because I actually was a reserve deputy sheriff for Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department doing search and rescue as well. So I had some of that law enforcement training as well. And, but I've always had that mentality of search and rescue. I didn't have the mentality of, being a police officer in a black and white, responding to, domestic violences and gang stuff and stuff like that. So, again, a different mentality, but still kind of the same mentality of the way I think about law enforcement in my side. The side out here, what I've seen here, this is the Wild West. I mean, this is crazy. I would never, ever, ever in my lifetime want to become a Metro officer.
Nisa Sun is with Force Trajectory Project. And Nisa, what's your perspective on all of this?
Terry's story is really unique in that, he was, first I just want to acknowledge Terry is a hero. We should all be honored to have this man on, be able to listen to his story. But I mean, this man has saved whales. He's saved a lot of human beings in his past. He's really a phenomenal person. He's the kind of person that you would want to be present if you were in some kind of life, if your life was endangered in some way, or if one of your family members fell ill or was in an accident. Terry's the kind of person that would run in and know exactly what to do and save that person's life. He has an incredible track record. Me and Terry worked together for probably 6 months trying to piece together his story, because it is very complex. And one of the the third episode of Residuum, which is our docuseries focused on Las Vegas police violence, the third and fourth episode are Terry's story, literally. And the first episode really explains and breaks down the Ambien effect that is what caused, him to act irrationally without any recollection that night. And we had to do a lot of research and find and interview people who have been impacted by Ambien also. And, people just don't understand that, Ambien, one, is a very dangerous pharmaceutical drug that definitely should not be on the market. The company itself is very powerful. You can't even hashtag Ambien on Instagram because they won't allow it. They have some kind of deal with Instagram where you can't even make it a hashtag. So, Terry is a victim of not only police brutality and corruption, he's also a victim of mass incarceration and being wrongfully accused and wrongfully arrested and wrongfully incarcerated. And he's also a victim of big pharma. It's like we recently saw the opioid crisis conclude in that class action lawsuit. And really, it's time for, Ambien victims to come together also to put an end to this crazy drug that people shouldn't be taking. One of the CEOs of Hard Rock Hotel, he a few years ago killed himself while under the influence of Ambien. And we have, high profile people like 45 and his administration giving out Ambien to his administration like candy. And also in the past, who else has been on Ambien? Tiger Woods, and Anna Nicole Smith, I think she died on Ambien. Heath Ledger died when he was, he overdosed on a bunch of different kinds of drugs and also Ambien. It's a very problematic drug. So that third episode is dedicated to breaking down Ambien. We have a colleague of mine and friend, Christina Boyce, who's a registered nurse, talk about it and talk about the effects of Ambien. And then the second episode is dedicated to explaining what happened that night. that Terry ended up becoming, influenced by Ambien and shooting up this car. But, all the evidence is there. He was having clearly a medical emergency. The officers that came on scene shot at him at point blank range, 21 shots. Miraculously, he survived, only getting shot 3 times, which tells me that it's likely that these officers were intoxicated because they shot him at point blank range, yet they only hit him 3 times out of 21 rounds. And, another thing that is critical in Terry's case, which was brought up this summer during the second legislative session with the passing of AB 3, which is a police accountability bill, addresses the fact that officers, after using force, don't get alcohol and drug tested. So AB 3 actually mandates officers to be tested for drugs and alcohol. And I do believe that if Terry's case happened, after the passing of AB 3, they would have found that these officers were intoxicated. So, it's really crazy and unfortunate what's happened to Terry. I fully support his pardon. We have been pushing his petition. I'll definitely leave it in the comments after this live session is over. But yeah, no, I feel very, very, I feel very sorry for Terry because, he's a hero. He's somebody who right now, if he was pardoned, could be saving lives. And he's very passionate about doing that. So, I commend Terry for his bravery and courage, because the fact that the police have been intimidating him constantly since he's been out is just absolutely disgusting and needs to be known in the public, in my opinion.
And Terry, you've gone through basically about the worst case scenario that a person can go through on so many levels. Having gone through these experiences, what do you want to see come out of all of this that could help someone else who might also encounter the worst case scenario like you did?
The legislators need to become more aware of what's going on. And I think, thankfully, obviously there was more instances that we didn't know about, the reason why AB 3 was passed. So these kind of things need to be brought out in the spotlight, and legislation needs to be passed. And I think I would really love, Big Pharma to have some issues in this too, but I know that's never going to happen because of the billions and billions of dollars that they make, and pay off legislators, up in Washington. But I really think that education is the biggest key to this, and that's one of the reasons why I do what I do with NISA, is that I can help educate others. I can help people that are involved in these kind of situations, people that have just got out of jail. I know how that is. I know the effects of that. Even right now, one of our families is having some issues with one of the family members, and we've had to kind of continuously deal with it. And I'm able to intercede in that kind of. So education, I think, is the biggest key that I can do right now. But until our legislators actually grow up here and actually start doing things to go up against some of these police departments, and also it's not actually just the police departments, it's actually the unions that protect the police departments. Metro's Police Protective Association is one of the most powerful in the nation, and they run Metro. Nothing gets done in Metro without the union doing things. So I'm sure they're probably spinning on their chairs right now with the pass of AB 3. But I think we need to start looking at some of that kind of stuff too, as well as take a look and find out exactly how much authority they should have in a police department. And then I think the biggest thing that I'd like to see is some sort of overwatch over police departments. Because right now, police themselves. And until we find out, you know, and I'm not going to say that I wasn't involved in some instances where, you know, my partner would say, you didn't see that, or that didn't happen, or, you know, because it does, it happens. It's a brotherhood, and somebody's at my door, and I'm hoping it's not my PO. Let me go just to make sure. But it's a brotherhood, and you have to. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Hi.
I'm Howard. I'm from the U.S. Census Bureau.
Okay, I'm on the phone on a conference call, Zoom. Can I come back later?
I'm going to leave you the sheet of paper.
Oh, okay.
In about 2 minutes.
Okay.
All right, or half a minute.
Okay.
And you can go online, or you can go on.
Okay.
The phone, RHZCFXEKF. You have 2 days.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
All righty. Well, I thought it was my PO, but thank God it wasn't. So back to what I was saying is an overwatch. You know, the police themselves, and that, to me, is dangerous. And we need some sort of oversight, whether it's civilian, whether it's a federal non-law enforcement oversight. You know, even some of these nonprofits, you know, Force Directory would be a great oversight. You know, I mean, we've done some great things with uncovering some things that have gone on in Metro. And, you know, I think that that's the biggest thing that I think, in my opinion, needs to be changed.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And in working with people like Terry, Lisa, and we talk about this often when we do these interviews about every situation is different, and yet there are a lot of common patterns that we see in terms of police brutality or police misconduct. And with someone like Terry, you know, how are you able to help him get on the path to be able to fulfill what it is that he wants to accomplish, along with helping you to fulfill the overall mission of improving people's lives by basically asking law enforcement to be more accountable for the things that they're doing?
I mean, I think for us, it's really about it's about being able to tell their story in a way that makes sense. Like, for example, Terry's story is very multi-layered, you know? And so again, it took months to figure out how to put the story together in a way that the public would be able to digest it and understand all of the layers that it entails. So, you know, the first part of it was really about, well, absolutely, the first part of it is about consent. It's about, you know, where is the survivor or the victim at in regards to their case? Are they able to, would telling their story and amplifying their voice be helpful in their situation? Because there are a lot of people that, you know, I mean, again, every case is different. You know, some cases families were tricked into signing a gag order until their case is closed, and they can't disclose any details because they signed something and they didn't even know about it. So in particular, Terry's case, it was really important to strategize with him and understand what it is that he's trying to do, which is to get this pardon so that he can return to his life of, you know, being a paramedic or a park ranger, or a medic or search and rescue, whatever it is that he decides to do, and make sure that we have all the pieces in place. So we do have a petition to demand the pardon for Terry. And, you know, of course, we have the 2 episodes that feature him that we hope that people will take the time to watch. And, you know, we have partnered with, you know, different platforms like yourself, and also Community Change, which is a national platform out of DC that I produce videos for. And so, with the help of the grassroots community and also larger community organizations, we're hoping that telling these stories like Terry's will begin to open the eyes of people and hearts and minds of people, especially those in who have influence in decision making. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it did. And Terry, we really appreciate you taking the time to stop by and tell your story, and wish you success as you continue to work towards your pardon and getting back into what you have a true passion for, which is helping people.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's funny. I wanted to say something before. I've never been the type of person to be in the spotlight, and Nisa can tell you that doing the 2 episodes of Residuum was hard for me because I'm not the type of person to be in front of the camera. I was never really a kind of guy that liked to get awards, and I don't feel I'm a hero by any means. I'm just an ordinary person that loves to do my job. And luckily, through the awards that I was able to save, I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is a Volunteer of the Year award that I received. This is the kind of person that I was, or still am. Mm-hmm. And then I also have a life-saving award for actually saving somebody's life. I was awarded life-saving award for the year. And these are the kind of things that the pardon board is going to see, and these are the kind of things that the people are going to see that, Metro did this to somebody, and it wasn't just, some random person. This was somebody that is capable of saving somebody's life, and they need to understand that there's some questions that are unanswered, and I'm hoping that there isn't a black cat that runs in front of the pardon board's way that day, but I hope to God that that I get a pardon. I really do, because I would like to continue doing my work.
We're gonna wish that you pitched the lucky horseshoe instead, right, of the black cat. Thanks again for being a part of the show.
I thank Nisa so much, and I thank you so much for allowing me to come on. And if you guys out there, please look at the Residuum video, look at the FTP website, and come help and be a part of what we do. I mean, this is huge to be able to help people who go through these traumatic experiences and have to deal with life-changing. Losing a loved one is hard, and to have to do it in the manner that like with Jesus talked about earlier in the week, this is difficult. This is not an easy thing to deal with. And when you have a department like Metro breathing down your neck, it's your life is not the same. It's difficult. And I think that, people don't understand that. So that's why I definitely implore you to come out and see what we do and see what it's like to be with a family member who's lost somebody, and to speak to some of the survivors. One of our survivors, Christina, who has the burns that she has. I look at her and I cry. It's difficult. It's hard to see. It's even in my job that I've done for so long to see some of these people to deal with these issues. So thank you again for letting me come on the show. I really appreciate it. Nisa, thank you. You are the best.
Thanks, Terry.
And as always, Nisa, I appreciate having Force Trajectory Project as a part of these broadcasts. I know that we have other broadcasts coming up in the future where we'll be talking with people. And there was a good point that you made when you were speaking just a minute ago, and you were talking about the fact that there are so many layers in every story, in every situation that comes up in life. And that's part of what Voices of Humanity is all about. It's about expressing the different layers for all of those out there of you who want to look for more information than maybe you're getting at the surface when you watch traditional television. There's a story that's being told there, but understand that there's always a lot more to those stories than are being told in these sound bites and these very short-lived news cycles that you experience usually with traditional media. And that is what the Voices of Humanity show is all about in this partnership that we have with the Force Trajectory Project. It is about starting to unravel some of the layers of these popular stories. There are probably many of you who've heard about Terry's story. And we hope that by allowing him to talk today, that you'll have a greater understanding of the man, of the situation, and that some of the circumstances that are happening within police departments, not just here in Las Vegas with Metro, but all around the country and around the world for that matter, and that these issues need to be addressed, as so many other issues that involve humanity need to be addressed, and we're going to be expressing with these shows that we have here at prconnectionsradio.com. So take care of yourselves, and look forward to seeing you on the next broadcast.
Great. Thank you, Guy. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.